$1 as a kid buying candy. When you're a kid, $1 feels enormous. Not because it actually buys a lot, but because kids measure money differently. A child doesn't think about bills, or taxes, or rent, or debt. Money only means one thing: possibility. That $1 becomes excitement before it's even spent. You walk into a small store already imagining what you might buy. Candy, chips, chocolate, a cheap toy near the counter. And somehow, choosing feels harder than earning it. Because at that age, spending money still feels magical. You haven't learned financial pressure yet. You haven't connected money to survival. So spending feels fun instead of stressful. That's why childhood purchases feel strangely memorable. People still remember tiny snacks they bought years ago. Not because the item mattered, but because the feeling did. Back then, $1 didn't feel small. It felt like freedom. But eventually, something changes. You grow up. Prices stop looking fun. And $1 slowly turns into math. $1 as a broke student. Then comes the broke student phase. And suddenly, $1 starts feeling very real. Not emotionally real. Mathematically real. You start calculating everything. How many days until payday? How much gas is left? Can I survive on instant noodles again? Now, $1 is no longer about excitement. It's about extending survival a little longer. A cheap snack at midnight suddenly feels expensive. An extra topping feels unnecessary. Even small purchases start creating guilt. Because when your budget is fragile, every tiny decision feels connected. $1 here, $3 there, $10 somewhere else. And somehow your bank account keeps shrinking faster than expected. This is usually the first time people emotionally understand opportunity cost. Not from school, not from economics class, from real life. Buying one thing quietly means giving up another thing later. That's why broke students often become hyper aware of prices. They compare brands, skip meals, wait for discounts, walk instead of taking transport. Not because they want to, because their money finally has emotional weight. And strangely, this phase changes how people see spending forever. Some people become extremely careful with money after this. Others do the opposite. The moment they finally get paid, they start spending emotionally again. $1 during payday. Payday changes people. Even before the money fully arrives, the stress gets quieter. The future feels safer. And suddenly, spending feels easier again. That expensive coffee doesn't seem so expensive anymore. Adding extra food to the order feels harmless. Small purchases that felt painful last week suddenly feel normal. Because money is heavily connected to emotional security. When people feel financially safe, they stop analyzing every dollar. Not permanently, just temporarily. That's why payday spending happens so fast. People tell themselves they deserve it. And honestly, sometimes they do. After days or weeks of stress, buying something enjoyable feels like relief. The problem is that emotional relief can make money feel lighter than it actually is. You stop thinking about subtraction. You only think about comfort. That's why people often spend the most right after getting paid. Not because they're bad with money. Because their brain is reacting to the feeling of finally escaping pressure. For a brief moment, $1 feels small again. Almost invisible. But that feeling usually doesn't last very long. Because eventually, another date starts getting closer. Rent day. And suddenly, every dollar changes again. $1 before rent is due. A dollar feels completely different right before rent is due. The exact same drink. The exact same snack. The exact same purchase. But now your brain reacts differently. Because timing changes the emotional weight of money, when rent is only a few days away, every purchase starts feeling connected to survival again. You stop asking, "Do I want this?" and start asking, "Can I afford to lose this right now?" That small difference changes everything. People become quieter with spending before bills hit. They open their banking app more often. They mentally calculate numbers while standing in stores. Sometimes they even avoid checking prices because they already know the answer will stress them out. And the strange part is that nothing about the dollar itself changed. Only the pressure around it changed. This is why financial stress feels exhausting. Even tiny spending decisions begin draining mental energy. A $2 coffee can suddenly create guilt. A food delivery feels irresponsible. And seeing money leave your account starts feeling physically uncomfortable. Because when obligations are close, money stops feeling flexible. It starts feeling fragile. That's also why wealthier people often experience small spending very differently. In some places, $1 barely feels noticeable at all. $1 in a rich country. In some rich countries, $1 almost feels invisible. You walk into a store and realize it barely buys anything by itself. Not a full meal, not a movie ticket, sometimes not even a small drink anymore. People casually spend $5, $10, even $20 without emotionally reacting much. Because in expensive environments, your brain slowly adjusts to larger numbers. Prices that once sounded shocking eventually start feeling normal. That's how people end up paying huge amounts for everyday convenience without even noticing. A quick snack, a delivery fee, a subscription, an extra charge hidden during checkout. Each one feels small individually, but together they quietly drain money over time. And when everything around you is expensive, $1 starts feeling weak, almost powerless. People even change the language they use. They stop saying, "That costs $1," and start saying, "It's only $1." That word matters. Only because emotionally, the value feels smaller than before. But that feeling depends heavily on where you live. In another country, that same dollar can still mean a full meal, transport, or an entire day's budget for someone, which completely changes how people emotionally protect money. $1 in a poor country. In poorer countries, $1 can still feel important, not symbolic, actually important. It might pay for a simple meal, a ride home, school supplies, phone data for the day. And because smaller amounts still carry real value, people often become extremely careful with money. Nothing gets wasted casually. People compare prices constantly, save leftovers, reuse old items, delay purchases for weeks. Not because they enjoy doing it, because even tiny amounts affect daily life. This creates a very different emotional relationship with spending. In wealthier places, convenience often wins. In poorer places, survival usually wins first. That's why two people can look at the exact same dollar and feel completely different emotions. One person sees spare change. Another sees security. And when prices suddenly rise in these situations, the emotional damage feels even stronger. Because inflation doesn't only increase costs, it slowly destroys what small amounts of money used to do. A dollar has never really been just a dollar, not emotionally. Its meaning changes depending on who you are, where you live, what you're afraid of, and what you need at that moment. To a child, it feels exciting. To a broke student, it feels strategic. During payday, it feels light. Before rent, it feels dangerous. In some countries, it feels forgettable. In others, it still feels essential. And that's why people experience money so differently from one another. Most spending decisions are not purely logical. They're emotional reactions connected to stress, comfort, survival, pressure, and hope. That's also why financial conversations can feel so personal. Two people can look at the exact same price and emotionally feel completely different things, because money is never just math. It's memory, pressure, relief, fear, freedom, sometimes all at once. And maybe that's why losing $1 can feel meaningless one day, but painful the next. So the next time you spend money and wonder why it feels emotionally different than before, it's probably not the dollar that changed. It's the moment in your life around it. If you enjoyed this video, Comment which version of $1 felt the most real to you. And if you want more everyday money explainers like this, subscribe to Every Dollar Counts.